Reece James is back in training and Chelsea fans are losing their minds. If you have been following Chelsea this season, you already know it has been one of the most frustrating and confusing campaigns in recent memory. Injuries, manager changes, poor results, and a team that looked like it had completely lost its confidence. But this week, something happened that has given the entire Chelsea fan base a reason to smile again. Reece James is back in training. And that is not all. Levi Colwill, who has been out since before the season even properly started, is also back training with the squad. Let that sink in for a moment. Two of Chelsea's most important defenders, both back on the grass, both looking good, and both potentially available for the game against Nottingham Forest on Monday afternoon at Stamford Bridge. If you needed something to lift the mood around SW6, this is it. But before we get too excited, let us sit down, take a deep breath, and go through everything that was said at the press conference on Friday. Because interim head coach Callum McFarlane gave us a lot to think about. And if you care about this club, you need to understand what this actually means for the rest of the season. The season so far has been tough. Let us be honest. Before we talk about what could go right from here, it is only fair to look at what has gone wrong this season, because that context matters a lot when you understand why the return of Reece James and Levi Colwill feels so big. Chelsea came into this season with high hopes. The squad looked talented on paper. There were exciting young players, experienced names, and a fan base ready to get behind the team. But things quickly fell apart. Injuries hit the squad hard and early. Levi Colwill, one of the most promising young centre-backs in English football, picked up a serious knee injury during pre-season. That means he has been watching from the sidelines while his teammates have been playing, struggling, and trying to find some form of consistency. Then there was the manager situation. Rosenior came in, but his time in charge did not go well. Chelsea fell badly behind in the race for a top 5 finish in the Premier League, dropping 10 points behind the group of teams fighting for Champions League qualification. That is a massive gap, and it did not happen overnight. The results were not good enough, the performances were below what this squad is capable of, and the mood around the club went very dark. Callum McFarlane stepped in as interim head coach, and his first proper test came in the FA Cup semi-final against Leeds United. Chelsea won that game, and suddenly there was a bit of life back in the camp. McFarlane himself admitted that winning that game changed everything. He said it is amazing how one win can completely shift the feel and atmosphere in a group of players. Now, with a game against Nottingham Forest coming up at Stamford Bridge on Monday, Chelsea have a chance to build on that momentum. And the news coming out of Cobham training ground on Friday has made everyone connected with this club feel a little bit better. So what exactly did Callum McFarlane say? On Friday afternoon, McFarlane held a press conference at Cobham ahead of the Nottingham Forest game. Journalists asked him about the injury situation, about the team's chances of making the top 5, and about his plans for the rest of the season. The biggest news from that press conference was simple and clear. Reece James is back in training. Levi Colwill is back in training. McFarlane said both players are looking good and that things are looking promising. He was careful not to make any firm promises because he does not want to rush either of them back before they are completely ready. But he confirmed that potentially both players could be in the squad for the Forest game on Monday. He said they are taking it day by day. He talked about how Levi has had a long injury and they do not want to push him too much. He also mentioned that Reece had a really good run of games before getting injured again. And the last thing anyone wants is for him to break down once more. This is the right approach. You do not bring players back too soon just because you need them. You bring them back when they are ready. And right now, the signs are positive. Who is Reece James and why does his return matter so much? If you are part of the Chelsea community but have not been following the club for too long, let us explain why Reece James coming back to training is such a massive deal. Reece James is the Chelsea captain. He was born and raised in the club's academy system in Cobham, which is the same training ground where he is now recovering from injury. He is not just a player for Chelsea. He is one of those rare players who genuinely loves the club, who grew up supporting the club, and who represents everything the club wants to stand for. As a right back, he is one of the best in the world on his day. He can defend, he can attack, he can deliver crosses, he scores goals, and he reads the game brilliantly. When Reece James is fully fit and playing week after week, Chelsea are a completely different team. His energy, his quality, and his leadership change everything about how the side functions. But the frustrating thing about Reece James over the last couple of years has been the injuries. He has been in and out of the team so many times. Hamstring problems, knee problems. There always seems to be something keeping him off the pitch. Every time he gets back to his best and looks like he is finally finding a run of form, something happens and he disappears again. This time, the hamstring injury that he picked up in March kept him out for 7 consecutive games across all competitions. That is a long time for a key player to be missing, and you could argue that his absence during that period was one of the reasons Chelsea's season started to go sideways. So when McFarlane stood in front of reporters on Friday and said that Reece is back in training and looking good, every Chelsea fan who heard those words felt a little bit of the weight lift off their shoulders. But here is the question that every Chelsea fan is asking right now. Is he actually ready to play against Nottingham Forest on Monday? The honest answer is that nobody knows yet. McFarlane said they will watch how he trains over the next few sessions and make a decision closer to the game. That is the sensible approach. But the fact that he is back on the grass and looking good is already a huge positive. The leadership role Reece has played while injured. One of the most interesting things McFarlane said in the press conference was not just about James being back in training, it was about the role he has played in the dressing room even while he has been injured. McFarlane said that Reece has been brilliant from the day he stepped up in January. Even when James was not playing, even when he was on the sidelines dealing with his hamstring injury, he was still a massive part of what was happening at the club. He was in the dressing room. He was talking to the players. He was helping set the standards. He was part of the leadership group. And McFarlane described him as a massive help, not just to him personally, but to the entire coaching staff. Think about what that means. This is a young man, still in the earlier part of his career, really. And he is already the kind of leader that a manager relies on, even when that player cannot kick a ball. McFarlane pointed out that even though James is still young, he has won major tournaments. He has that experience that only comes from performing on the biggest stages, and he brings that into the training environment and the dressing room every single day. For the young players at Chelsea, and there are a lot of them, having someone like Reece James around is invaluable. He sets the example. He shows them what it means to be a Chelsea player. He drives standards, and that matters just as much as what he does with a ball at his feet. Now imagine having him back and actually playing on the pitch. That is when things get really exciting. Now let us talk about Levi Colwill. If the return of Reece James is big news, then the update on Levi Colwill is equally important, maybe even more so when you consider how long he has been out. Colwill suffered an anterior cruciate ligament injury at the start of pre-season. For those who do not know what that means, an ACL injury is one of the most serious injuries a footballer can suffer. It requires surgery, it requires months and months of rehabilitation, and it requires an enormous amount of mental strength to get through. ACL injuries are not like hamstring problems or muscle strains that might keep you out for a few weeks. We are talking about a recovery process that can take 6 months or longer. Some players come back stronger. Some struggle to get back to their best. It is one of the great challenges in modern football. Levi Colwill has been going through all of that this season, watching from the sidelines as his teammates played without him. As a young centre-back who was widely expected to be one of Chelsea's most important players this season, that must have been incredibly difficult. But the news from Cobham on Friday was very encouraging. Not only is Colwill back in training with the first team squad, but he has already taken a huge step in his recovery by actually playing a game. Last weekend, he featured for Chelsea's under-21 side, helping them to a 1-0 win over Middlesbrough in the last 16 of the Premier League 2 playoffs. He captained the side for that game, which is a sign of how highly he is regarded even among the younger age groups at the club. McFarlane said he has been looking good. He said Levi has had a long injury and they are being careful with him. But the signs are clearly positive, and the possibility of him being involved in the squad for the Forest game is real. Now let us think about what it means to have Levi Colwill back available for Chelsea. Why Levi Colwill is so important to this Chelsea side. Levi Colwill is another academy graduate. Like Reece James, he grew up at Cobham. He went out on loan a couple of times to get experience, including a very impressive stint at Brighton, and then came back to claim his place in the first team. What makes Colwill special is his combination of technical quality and physical presence. He is comfortable on the ball, he can play the ball out from the back, and he reads the game well for a young player. When you watch him at his best, you see a centre-back who has everything needed to become one of the best in England. The timing of his injury this season has been really unfortunate. Missing the entire season so far means he has lost a huge amount of football at a critical stage of his development. But he is young, and the most important thing is that he comes back fully fit and ready to play his part in the remainder of this season. If both Colwill and James can get through the next few training sessions without any setbacks and make the squad for Monday, Chelsea will suddenly look like a very different team defensively. Two quality players back in the mix, both from the academy, both with a genuine connection to the club. That is the kind of thing that can change the energy around a squad overnight. What about the game against Nottingham Forest? So let us talk about Monday's game. Chelsea versus Nottingham Forest at Stamford Bridge. Kick-off on Monday afternoon. Forest are managed by Vitor Pereira, and they have been one of the more interesting teams in the Premier League this season. This is not a game that Chelsea can take lightly. Stamford Bridge needs to be a fortress, especially now that the team is trying to rebuild some confidence and momentum after a difficult period. The stakes for Chelsea are complicated. McFarlane was asked at the press conference whether a top 5 finish in the Premier League is still possible, and he was pretty straightforward about it. He acknowledged that Chelsea have fallen behind in that race and that the gap to the teams above them is significant. But he also said something that every Chelsea fan should take to heart. He said the plan is simple. Win your games. Do not worry about what anyone else is doing. Focus on the next training session. Focus on the next game and take it day by day. That is the right mindset. If Chelsea can put together a run of wins between now and the end of the season, who knows what might happen? The top 5 might be out of reach, but there is still plenty to play for. There is the FA Cup, where Chelsea have already reached the final after beating Leeds United in the semi-final. That is a huge opportunity to win a trophy. And there is the matter of pride, of showing that this squad, despite all the problems this season, can finish the campaign with something to be proud of. Having Reece James and Levi Colwill available would be a massive boost heading into that game against Forest. 2 leaders, 2 quality defenders, both hungry to get back on the pitch and make a difference. McFarlane and his plans for the young players. One more thing from the press conference that is worth talking about, because it tells us something important about where Chelsea might be heading. McFarlane was asked about the young players at Cobham and whether he plans to bring any of them into the first team setup. His answer was very positive. He talked about there being a lot of young talent down at the academy. He said he knows them really well, that they train with the first team regularly, and that there are definitely players down there who could make the step up to the senior squad. This is an exciting thing to hear. Chelsea have always been proud of their academy, but in recent years, the pathway from the youth teams to the first team has not always been as clear as it should be. There have been too many players who grew up at Cobham only to be sold on without ever getting a real chance to play for the first team. If McFarlane genuinely believes in giving young players a chance, and if he follows through on that, it could be a really positive thing for the club. The supporters love seeing academy players get opportunities. There is something special about watching a player who has been at the club since he was a child go out and perform in front of a packed Stamford Bridge. Think about what Reece James and Levi Colwill mean to the fans. Part of the reason people love them so much is because they are Chelsea through and through. They did not just arrive for a big transfer fee. They grew up here. They know what it means to wear the blue shirt. If there are more players like that coming through, players who are ready to make the step up, then the future looks brighter than it might feel right now. What happens if both players are rushed back too soon? This is the question that needs to be asked, even if nobody really wants to think about it. One of the biggest problems with Reece James over the last couple of years has been the pattern of him returning from injury, looking great for a few games, and then breaking down again. It is the kind of cycle that is genuinely heartbreaking to watch, both for the player and for the fans. McFarlane seems very aware of this risk. He said clearly that he does not want to push Reece too much. He acknowledged that James had a really good run of games before this latest hamstring injury, and that the last thing anyone wants is for him to get injured again the moment he comes back. The same applies to Colwill. An ACL recovery is a long and complicated process. Even when a player feels ready to go, there can be setbacks. The medical team at Chelsea will have been monitoring his progress very carefully, and they will be the ones who ultimately decide when he is truly ready to feature for the first team. The good news is that McFarlane seems to genuinely care about the well-being of his players more than he cares about the short-term result. Yes, Chelsea need points. Yes, having James and Colwill available for Forest would be brilliant. But if they are not completely ready, it is better to wait. Getting them back properly, fully fit and confident is far more valuable than rushing them back and risking another injury. The bigger picture for Chelsea this season. Let us zoom out for a moment and think about what this season has meant for Chelsea and where the club goes from here. This has been a frustrating campaign by any measure. The team has had too many managers, too many injuries, too many inconsistent performances. The gap to the top 5 in the Premier League is big enough that Champions League football looks like a long shot for next season. But there are reasons for hope, and they are real reasons, not just wishful thinking. The FA Cup final is coming. Chelsea are in it. That is a massive opportunity. The young talent at the club is genuine. Players like Colwill, James, and the young academy prospects coming through represent a solid foundation. McFarlane, whatever happens with the permanent manager search, seems to have steadied the ship. The win over Leeds in the FA Cup semi-final was important, not just for the result, but for the mood it created. And now, the return of 2 key players from injury gives everyone something to look forward to heading into a crucial run of games. The permanent manager question is still unresolved. Names like Xabi Alonso and Andoni Iraola have been mentioned in the press as potential candidates. Whoever comes in will inherit a squad that has real quality but needs to be organised and motivated properly. Having Reece James fit and available, leading the group from right back, would make any new manager's job a little bit easier. A message to the Chelsea fan base. If you are reading this as part of the Chelsea community, you know better than most how emotional it can be to follow this club. The highs are incredibly high and the lows can feel devastating. This season has had more lows than highs, and there have been moments where it felt like everything was falling apart. But this is the time to stay together. This is the time to get behind the team, get behind the players who have been working hard to come back from injury and make Stamford Bridge the kind of place that gives the team energy and belief. Reece James coming back to training is a moment to celebrate, not because it means everything is suddenly fine, not because it solves all the problems, but because it is a reminder that good things are possible, that players who care about this club are fighting to get back on the pitch, and that there is still plenty to play for. When Reece James walks back onto that pitch, whether it is Monday against Forest or a game after that, give him everything you have got. This is a player who has given so much to this club and who keeps fighting back no matter what happens to him. He deserves that reception. And when Levi Colwill takes his place in the starting lineup for the first time after all those months of hard work in rehabilitation, make sure he knows that the supporters appreciate what he has gone through. These players are Chelsea, they are us, and they are coming back. Final thoughts. So where does all this leave us heading into Monday's game against Nottingham Forest? The honest answer is that we do not know yet exactly who will be available. McFarlane has said the club is taking it day by day, watching how James and Colwill come through training and making decisions closer to the game. But the direction of travel is positive. Both players are back. Both are looking good. And the possibility of having them involved on Monday is real. For Chelsea fans who have been through a difficult few months, that is something worth being genuinely excited about. Not in a way that sets unrealistic expectations, but in a way that reminds you why you fell in love with this club in the first place. Because when Chelsea are at their best, with key players fit, with the crowd behind them, and with a team that believes in itself, there are few better things in football. Monday against Forest at Stamford Bridge could be the start of something, a fresh chapter in what has been a difficult season, a chance to show that this team still has something to offer, that the academy spirit is alive, and that the blue flag is still flying. Get behind the boys, it is time. Come on, Chelsea.